Initially conceived by the friend trio of Monty Oom, Miles Luna and Kerry Shawcross, RWBY is a fantasy sci-fi action series with characters, imagery and world building inspired by reinterpretations of classic fairy tale characters, historical figures and creatures of folklore. It is also one of the most engaging and exciting examples of postmodern media seen to date, and in this video I'm going to go over some of the reasons why. But before I explain why that is, it is important to define what postmodernism is. Postmodernism is a collection of trends or movements in the arts and literature that began in the 1970s, which often made use of elements from historical vernacular, styles, playful illusion, aesthetic, and complexity. And yes, I'm aware that was a bit of a word salad. Please give me some time. The essay, Define Postmodern Media with Examples, provides us with a more concrete description and set of examples. First, by highlighting that postmodern media makes no attempt to hide that it isn't real. Those who create in this style want their audience to understand and recognize the references and allusions to past tales. An example they cite in detail include auteur Quentin Tarantino and his Inglourious Basterds film, that first establishes its unreality with the use of text on screen reading "Once Upon a Time in Occupied Europe," drawing our minds to fairy tales rather than docudrama or pure action fare. This blend of faux historical setting and aesthetic along with fairy tale framing is maintained with the use of chapters that segment the film, reminding us that it is in fact very unreal. Levi-Strauss notes that a war film based in a well-documented historical period is not what one would consider a typical setting for a fairy tale, while Gerard Gannet's theory of hypotextuality explains that upon seeing the familiar trappings of a fairy tale, we take our preceding definition of such stories and amend them to the war film template, rather than letting one dominate the other or them exist exclusively from each other. In essence, postmodern media defies the conventions of its advertised or expected genre, disregarding the barrier between styles. By its very nature, it borrows styles and techniques from different genres, blending them into a unique combination to better tell its own story, thus embracing a form of hyperreality that emphasizes style, character and themes not over substance, but as an inherent part of its substance. RWBY makes use of similar devices, leaning on its storybook inspirations by defining its episodes as chapters, its seasons as volumes, and through allusions to its source materials and inspirations, as well as holding a general disregard for a singular genre, instead embracing or blending different styles as the story needs dictate. In many respects, RWBY is an exemplar of blending styles, with its combination of youth adventure and coming-of-age tale, with a high-octane kinetic action and battles as ideological duel that one would normally expect from a shonen series. But RWBY takes it even further by utilizing common magical girl themes and weaving them with its own inherent nature as a hope punk setting, even while utilizing and contrasting it against horror as necessary. The creators of RWBY conceived of this series well aware that they were writing in a globalized world, one saturated with stories, and rather than deny this or run from the fact, RWBY embraces it and makes full use of it to enhance their own story, and this goes well beyond merely borrowing Red Riding Hood's popular aesthetic or the framing of their episodes and volumes in storybook terminology. My favourite go-to examples of this are how RWBY utilizes its character inspirations to its advantages, which also works very well for audience engagement, as you may have noticed from the various fan theories. For example, if one wants to frame an important authority figure as not malicious but definitely untrustworthy, then who better to use as their inspiration and base aesthetic than the Wizard of Oz and his Emerald City? Want to hint at a backstory of abuse and mistreatment without showing your hand too soon or wasting the audience's time? Then look no further than Cinderella, and as a bonus, she comes with her own evil fairy godmother. But this goes beyond individual character inspirations and also into how they foil and play off one another. Take Volume 7, where we were shown General Ironwood's well-meaning authoritarianism cannot be trusted by introducing the legendary hero Robin Hood and the merry men in the form of Robin Hill and her happy huntresses to oppose him. There's many other examples. I have seen extensive essays detailing the imagery of the cursed rose for Adam Taurus, who served as a personal villain, or curse, upon the lives of Blake Belladonna and Yang Xiaolong, both of whom have had their thematic ties to Bella and the Beast highlighted across the series and even in the soundtracks. But ultimately, RWBY is a story written by people who understand that their audience lives in a world saturated with stories, and rather than thrash against that, choose to embrace the fact that nothing is original and use the wealth of tales that came before them to enhance their story, its characters and themes. I could harp on this topic further, but each of the character examples I've provided could already be a video unto themselves, and we would be here all day regardless. However, if one wants to do some reading on the topic or check my sources, they are linked below. Thanks for your time!